Everybody Hates Rand is a Wheel of Time podcast that will contain spoilers for all 14 books. So if you're anti-spoiler, stop this, read all 14 books, and come back. We'll be here, waiting.
Our title is a joke and is meant to be taken as such. Everybody in this context refers to us and our cats. You are free to feel however you want about Rand. He's a fictional character. Please don't DM us.
The world is a mess, Dark One stretching out his hand. The dragon's reborn, the fire's been fanned, but everybody hates Rand. Everybody hates Rand. Everybody hates Rand.
Okay.
Alright, divas, let's do it!
Have you heard about, this new reality TV show that they're making that's like Desperate Housewives of Salt Lake City, but it's, like Mormon Wives is the title.
Oh, dear God.
But it's like not Desperate Housewives because it's like younger girls or, you know, women in their 30s or whatever.
Sure.
Haven't heard about this?
No, I haven't heard about it.
Well, my high school friend group chat is currently embroiled in debate over whether one of them went to high school with us. We can't remember because between, 15 years of not seeing people. And also, all of them kind of look the same.
The Secret Lives of Mormon Wives.
Yeah.
Is that it?
Yeah. Apparently it's like, some sort of reactionary money-making thing because there was some sort of TikTok scandal about swinging in the Mormon community. I guess these women are in the middle of it, or at least one of them is. Anyway, just who knows? Maybe I went to high school with one of them. Maybe I didn't. Who's to say?
Well, I sure am gonna have to watch this.
I was gonna say, it seems like the sort of things you and your friends would watch. My friends were all like, yeah, it's because of that TikTok swinging thing. And I'm like, what the fuck are you guys talking about? And they're like, don't you know? And I'm like, I'm not on TikTok. Am I missing out this much? And they're like, we're going to make you a PowerPoint to explain.
Sure, I
like,
would
great,
appreciate
I love that. Yeah,
I am on such like niche sides of TikTok that people will be like, did you see about this TikTok thing? And I'm like, I need you to understand that my TikTok feed right now is 90% the Japanese national volleyball team. And like edits of games that they did and silly things that they did. Yeah. And like the other 10% is like silly cat videos dancing to Charlie XCX.
Yeah, you do have to sort of buy in to that sort of algorithmic.
Yeah.
If you have any form of resistance to that by having different interests,
yeah,
I guess you still miss the gossip.
Yeah.
Which I think if I saw like a white lady talking, I'd just be like, skip.
I'd be like, listen, I'm also starting to get a lot of really nice Haikyuu edits. Haikyuu is coming. It's because I've been watching videos about the Japanese national volleyball team. So, I don't know. The algorithm is a complicated and crazy thing, but people be like, this TikTok thing. And I'm like, I'm not on like TikTok. I'm on like freak TikTok. For like little gremlins.
Welcome to Freak TikTok.
Yeah.
It's the hot topic of TikTok.
So I can't wait to watch The Secret Lives of Mormon Wives. There's also a wife, one of the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. I can't remember her name because I don't remember any.
Did I say Desperate Housewives?
You did, but it's kind of the same thing, right? Who was also kind of embroiled in a swinging scandal. So it's so funny to me that people keep being like, swinging scandal. I also I know it's because it's Mormonism, the Real Housewife with the swinging, who's like, everyone's like, she's a swinger, and she's like, I'm not a swinger, she's also Mormon. So I know it's like part of the like the Mormonism bracket around that, but it's so funny for when people are like a swinging scandal, as if swinging isn't like a very mild,
pretty ubiquitous form of non-monogamy.
Yeah, it's like totally like, to me, I'm like, whatever, if you want to swing with another couple that you really like or just like another couple in general, that's like so like not a big deal, I think, for so many people. So it's just a fascinating insight into But I do think also not only in the Mormon culture, but I do think there's still like a pretty big stigma around swinging in particular. Like people think it's like such a like a freaky, kinky thing to do.
Yeah, you're a sex freak if you're a swinger or something. And it's like, if you guys knew the sex perverts that I knew on Tumblr.com,
I know, I was about to say, like, you wouldn't last 30 seconds on my Tumblr when people are like,
come on,
say the most heinous things about an anime mentor that you've ever heard in your life.
And who can blame them?
And you're like, I get it.
I would also do those things to Kakashi.
Yeah, given the opportunity, I'd be like, my body belongs to you. Whatever you want, my king.
Gojo, on the other hand?
No. Gun to the head.
Gun to the head.
So anyway, I just is...
Yeah, one of my friends in this chat claims that swinging is like a big quote-unquote problem in the Mormon community. And I'm like, I don't think that, like, granted, my, actual FaceTime with Mormons these days is pretty limited to my parents, who are not going to be talking about swinging and possibly do not know what swinging is.
Right.
I take that back. They probably know what swinging is, but only because there have probably been Law and Order episodes about it.
Yeah.
So it's not like we talk about the sexual deviance within the Mormon community over family dinners.
Sure.
But I'm like, I don't think it can possibly be that. I don't think, like, Mormonism breeds swingers, you know? I think probably there's as much swinging, there's a proportional amount of swinging in the Mormon community as in literally every other community, and just being in a, Protestant religion makes everyone more weird about it when they find out. We are not being paid by the Secret Lives of Mormon Wives, but I guess updates to follow.
I mean, yeah, I'm just fascinated by it. I would love to know what everyone's, like, obsession is with, like, swinging in particular. I don't know.
Yeah.
I just feel like everyone is just, like, particularly weird about swinging. Maybe it is, like you said, just, like, a particularly weird violation on monogamy that people are upset about. I don't know. Anyway, that's a thought exercise for another time. I'll ask Janet sometimes.
I bet Janet would have interesting. Janet's our friend who is a sex therapist in Utah, so
I would
have
love
a lot of experience.
Yeah, maybe Janet will know if swinging is a big quote-unquote problem in the Mormon community.
She probably would, yeah. Okay, this isn't about
Should I just cold
swinging.
drop this link to Janet and be like, thoughts?
Yeah. Discuss.
Should I put it in
my
our Survivor
sister,
chat or
include
just
my sister too, because Sarah will want to. Sarah loves gossip. Okay,
you're right. I need to bring more gossip into Sarah's life.
Yeah, my sister.
Okay, I'm so sorry.
It's my nephew's first day of first grade today as we're recording this, and my sister was already gossiping about the mean kids in his class, and I'm like, don't become that mom. You need adult things to gossip about.
Yeah, like the Secret Lives of Mormon Wives. That's not what we are talking about. We are talking about
the last battle. We get yet another epigraph.
This is our podcast, by the way. I don't know if we did the introduction.
We didn't, but I just got embroiled one last time in epigraph versus epitaph.
You did such a good job.
This is Everybody Hates Rand, your friendly neighborhood Wheelie Town podcast. I'm Emily Jushaw.
And I am Sally Goodger.
And welcome to chapter 37, y'all. The titan of chapters.
Yeah, the Damocles sword that's been hanging above our heads. Yeah, Emily got a sweet ass tattoo with Damocles sword.
It's so niche.
No, I love it.
Yeah, it has been swinging over our heads for quite a while now. Here it is. We've arrived, and it's sort of exactly what you'd expect.
There is. You guys are never going to believe this. I mean, even though I was prepared for it, it still was a bit shocking how frequently we switch point of view and how disorienting it was.
You ain't seen nothing yet. They get shorter as the chapter goes on. That is
absolutely asinine, Brandon. You have committed a crime against literature, and I'm taking you to court. So that was a little shocking. Other than that, no, I mean, you guys won't believe it. There's a lot of battle happening, so it's a lot of just like,
quite a bit of battle, yeah.
Quite heavy on the battle. And then I was kind of, I guess we'll talk way more about this, but I was not like shocked or surprised, but I was a little, and I guess it's like thematically relevant, but I was Emily's sister is the funniest texter in the world. She will say something very dramatic, but like a lead-in to something very dramatic.
Yeah, she can't
And then, like, it will take a while for the dramatic text to follow.
Sarah texts the way she talks.
Yeah.
Which is, like, with pauses.
Yeah.
In between. Yeah. Crazy.
I guess I won't say disappointed. I guess I'm, like, personally disappointed, but narratively it makes sense that, like, so far Rand's encounter with the Dark One has been, like, psychological dream space. Very book one, pulling each other into different visions type thing. So it makes sense. I don't really know what I'm wanting out of that encounter, but I feel like I don't know. I'm struggling to form an opinion on how the battle with the Dark One itself is going.
Yeah, we'll get to that at the very end, because
yeah,
Rand's first encounter, I guess, Rand's first reality sharing with the Dark One is what ends this little episode. But first we start with an epigraph from the Notebook of Loyal. So spoiler alert, I guess he lives. It's very, I say this a lot, but I grew up reading the Bible and shit like that, and so did Brandon Sanderson, so it has a lot of that sort of scriptural language. To win this one last battle and cast a shadow across the earth, to usher in an age where the wails of suffering would go unheard. Everyone's deaf in the next age.
You said that? I read this with my own eyes, and you said the wails of suffering, and my head immediately brought up whales, like the
like
creature.
Blue whales.
These are the whales
like
of
in
suffering.
Moby Dick times.
Yeah, these are the whales of suffering.
Whales of our suffering. There's no way to go but through, I guess. First, the sort of overarching theme, we're getting a lot of battle segments within the Fields of Marilor area, and then we get our one Rand point of view. I believe that's all we cover. On the Fields of Marilor, the main thing that's happening is that people are experiencing the first few hours of battle, and the big takeaway is that we're losing bad. And we hear from Matt multiple times, or from characters who are close to Matt, that this is intentional. Matt is trying to, like, create a sort of trap. Matt himself compares it to playing a game of cards where you have to lose a little bit in order to win in the later rounds. But, you know, people are still dying. Lots of them. So it would be interesting, I think, to see Matt reckoning with that on more of an ethical level. And I think it's possible that the Robert Jordan version of Rand would be more concerned with that, but this version of Matt is more interested in, you know, sort of joking while he's on screen. So first we get Lan leading some kind of charge. He's like, wow, for yet again, he's like, oh my god, poor people and women are also doing this.
Unreal.
And everyone's like, yeah, crazy dude. What the?
Crazy how nobody wants the world to end, even poor people and women.
Yeah. What the fuck?
That's crazy.
We then get an Elaine point of view as she's walking through the camp to go meet with Matt, and there's like an attack of the drag car. It's like a drag race. You know, those vampire bat freaks. And Elaine's solution to their, like, cursed singing is to blow out everyone's eardrums, which I'm like, girl, there must have been a better way. I feel there must have been a better way. But what do I know? Anyway, they take care of that and then get to the sort of command center where Matt is stationed, along with, like, Tuon and Min are there. Matt is, like, got his maps. We also see throughout this, Matt is constantly interfacing with, like, messengers. People on the battlefield are constantly receiving airborne messages. I wish that there had been, like, a messenger pigeon division in this battle, but unfortunately it's the Shanshin dragons delivering
that
most
drop,
of these.
like, cannonballs.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you couldn't have figured out something to drop that doesn't kill people?
Yeah, just ones I'd like to have seen one just, like, absolutely obliterate some guy, and then, you know, Glad has to pick through the fucking bone fragments
to find the
to
message.
Get to the message. But basically Elaine's like, why did you change the battle plan? What the fuck is going on? And Matt's like, I've changed it because people are listening. There's, you know... There's spies afoot, and so only I get to know what's going on. And Elaine's like, okay, you've got to, like, appoint someone to take over if you're gone, though. And he's like, okay. We then get an Uno point of view, where he's like, fuck the French, first off.
Yeah.
Specifically about Talmanes, and I'm like, enemies to lovers. Talmanes and Uno.
It'd be so funny.
You'd love to see it. Their sexual tension is off the charts. Uno's, like, commanding a force alongside Talmanes and Eludra's dragons. And as they are fighting, they get an order for Matt to retreat. That doesn't really make a lot of sense to them, but right after that, they are attacked by, like, a massive show of channeling, which we extrapolate from it and from other characters later on, is Demandred appearing on the battlefield, linked to a full circle of 72?
72.
Ain't that all of them, you know?
Yeah.
How can there be more than 72? I mean, I guess we never run out of Black Aja. That's sort of the paradox of the Black Aja. They don't exist, but we also never run out of them.
They're always here.
And also, channelers later are like, he must have Saw Angreal, kind of similar to how Edwin has that special rod.
Yeah, he's carrying... Demandred is carrying a scepter, as if it is not clear enough that he's got some, like, Freudian thing going on with Rand.
You're like, hey, dude.
It's...
a little embarrassing.
Yeah, again, it's a little obvious. It's a little embarrassing. It's so fun. The reactions of everyone to Demandred are pretty funny, though, where they're all like, what is he doing? Why is he yelling
what's this
for
guy's
Rand?
deal? Yeah, he's still like, I want the Dragon Reborn, send for him. And everyone's like, dude,
he's like out in the cosmos
he is
right
out
now.
of office.
Yeah,
like, come
not
on.
even in this dimension.
My
like,
brother.
Could you chill out?
My brother in Christ, you need to
be
chill.
normal about this.
Demandred's also wielding balefire like it's his job, so
yeah.
People are getting balefired, which we remember is bad.
It's creating the bad cracks in the rocks.
The bad cracks.
The bad cracks.
As opposed to the good cracks.
Some cracks can be good.
Oh, we all know what cracks are good. Okay. Fucking Logain.
He's here.
Logain of all people. So stupid. My nemesis. In Logain's point of view, he's like, I hate Rand, but I hate Mazrim Tem more. So, as much as it infuriates me to follow orders from Rand, it allows me to go after Mazrim Tem, so I will.
Yeah. Necessary evil.
Logain's kind of got this little, A-team, which of course includes Andril and whatever, and his orders to them are like, we're not going to operate alongside the rest of the channelers on this battlefield. We are specifically going to go on a quest to find the seals of the Dark One's prison that have been stolen. Mm-hmm. So he's sending out everyone to do that. He's also, like, ready at the drop of a hat to engage with Mazrim Tem. He's like, I am hunting Mazrim Tem. Simultaneously, and this kind of gets confusing, the whole Mazrim Tem Demandred thing, which, again, they should have been the same person. But, like, he's also like, but also I kind of want to fight Demandred to, like, test my skill against him. This is a classic man thought, and we are going to see it about 18 more times within this chapter, to varying results.
Yeah, it's so funny, because I'm, like, so on board with Logain's kill Mazrim Tem mission. I'm like, I want that guy obliterated.
I want Logain to, like, strangle Mazrim Tem with his bare hands.
And I don't even like Logain that much, but I do think he's earned it. Like, if anybody's earned the right to kill Mazrim Tem, it's either me or Logain, so...
Me or Logain, I'll fight him for it in the Denny's parking lot.
In the Denny's parking lot. But then you're like... I couldn't be less on board with Logain fighting Demandred. So it's like, how are
no connection narratively at all.
Doesn't make any sense. So yeah, it is just like man thought of everyone being like, Logain is, and it's also kind of like, Logain's one of our more powerful male channelers on the battlefield, so might be a good one, you know, in terms of plot schematics to set up against Mazrim Tem, but it doesn't make a ton of sense.
Yeah, we get these sort of like, this is both a battle en masse functioning at the same time as we get these sort of like anime battle setups wherein various high-ranking enemies are finding each other and having these big old duels. Mm-hmm. And, to have a good duel type fight, you need the characters to have sort of investments in each other in a way. So yeah, like Logain and Demandred as a pairing doesn't make a lot of sense. But Demandred doesn't make a lot of sense with most people because he hasn't been on screen.
Yeah.
The people I'd be okay with fighting Demandred include Matt, because they're set up as foils as sort of the anti-generals. Edwene, maybe, because she's the top female channeler on this battlefield. Or if Moghedien stabbed him in the back.
That would be so good.
Just like as sort of a...
That's enough out of you.
That's enough out of you. Someone's got to do it. This bitch is crazy and I'm going to put him down.
Yeah.
Fuck
you.
But that's it. Anyone else going up against Demandred, you're like... You're just doing this for, like... What's the word? Clout.
Yeah.
And it doesn't feel like you're doing it for any reason other than clout. You gotta know that you're not gonna fight this guy alone and be successful.
Yeah.
Anyway, Mazrim Tem, on the other hand, you've got probably half a dozen more people who would function well enough to kill him, and I'd be satisfied with Logain being one of them. Probably the funniest part of this Logain point of view is that, remember Logain force bonded to White Tower women, Gabrelle and Tovine. Tovine got turned, though, so Gabrelle is like, what's up with that? And Logain's like, yeah, I released the bond to her, which reminds us that that's a thing you can do, relevant to the Alana subplot. But then Gabrelle is like, in her head, God, I wish that were me. I hate being bonded to this son of a bitch.
Yeah.
And Logain's like, ouch? But we fucked, though.
Yeah.
And Gabrelle's like, I still hate your guts. You forcibly bonded me. Like,
yeah.
It's not that complicated, idiot.
And, like, basically kept me prisoner at the Black Tower.
So maybe think about how I have agency, including agency to hate you.
Logain's exhibiting a lot of man behaviors. Revenge, fighting for clout, thinking of women as property, and getting his feelings hurt when they have actual feelings and thoughts of their own.
Honestly, Mazrim Tem and Logain killing each other would be my ideal
that would be
outcome.
pretty satisfying.
We then switch to, speaking of man pain, we then switch to a Gawain point of view as he's watching, like, Edwene and others getting debriefed on the Demandred situation. They're like, well, we've got to try and deal with him, just kind of talking about, well, he's killing thousands. And Gawain's like, killing thousands. And here they stood, like, clearly thinking, oh, they're not doing enough.
Yeah.
And it's like, dude, you need to calm down. Okay. Anyway, Gawain just, like, leaves the tent without alerting anyone. Just slips away, and then he's also been feeling really sick and tired because he took off the Shanshan rings that are supposed to kill you.
Yeah.
But as soon as he puts them back on, wouldn't you know it, he's magically boosted again.
He also puts all three of them on, which, if we know anything about magic rings, it's that one is bad enough.
And so many is even worse.
Yeah.
It's so bad.
So, Gawain just being like, I'll take care of this. There's a line where he's like, you thought you were willing to stand in your shadow.
You're going to stand in her shadow. And he's like, this isn't mutually exclusive. And it's like, yes, it is.
Yes, it is.
You're so stupid.
He's like, me. So another person who basically is like, I will go fight Demandred myself. And it's like, Logain at least has like some ground to stand on as someone
as a channeler.
Can use magic. You are a sword boy and an idiot.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're 12 years old, Gawain.
Silly.
Get off the battlefield.
We then switch over to Tam, who's doing a battle. I don't think Tam has anything interesting to update us on.
Yeah, the like key thing here is that they're holding a river, basically.
Yeah. Tam also alerts us to the fact that everyone is aware that Perrin came back, but in bad shape, and that he is now healing in Mayene.
And I still beg for some explanation from the narrative about how Perrin got this badly injured, you know?
He got, I thought an arrow, and also, like, some exhaustion.
Some fatigue, and they're like, Perrin might die.
Perrin's on death's door.
Yeah.
And I'm like, are we? Is he?
I don't understand
what are we talking
what happened
about?
to him.
Then we get a bad Pavara point of view. She and Andrel have graduated to full-on telepathy, so just don't worry about that. They're on their sort of, like, strike force thing, just going around doing shit with gateways. Pavara's like, oh my gosh, I'm so in love with him. And I'm like, girl, I wish you weren't, because he's insufferable.
Yeah.
I don't really know what they're doing here. They're just kind of, like, jumping around.
Yeah.
Like, I think they're drawing attention or something.
Yeah.
The important, quote-unquote important thing, because Brandon's really invested in this subplot of, like, the women and men bonding each other and then sort of becoming this hybrid magical channeling creature, is that at one point they're in a circle with Andrel leading, and Pavara manages to channel while in the circle. Like, she takes control of it, almost. And they're just like, that's weird, and move on.
This is so random, but there's not much else to talk about, so I'm going to throw this random thought out there. In plots about telepathy, I feel like we really understate what it would be like to be in someone else's mind. Like, what if you're like, I am magically linked with someone with, like, very bad anxiety, and so constantly you're just hearing this, like, ticker of every, like, anxious, paranoid, sad thought running through their head, you know?
Yeah, and then now you have anxiety also.
Yeah, it's not like, not everyone is mentally well, you know? It's not, like, pleasant to be in. It's not pleasant to be in my head. I don't want to be in my head.
I would not inflict that on anyone.
It's not pleasant to be in here. This is so much anxiety in this bad boy.
Yeah, like, at least Jean Grey went crazy about it, you know?
Yeah. And, like, you can understand that, because it's like, being in other people, like, telepathy, it sounds like one of the worst.
Super bad.
Yeah.
Super bad.
Okay, sorry, that was so random. We just, like, talk about the ableism in various superpowers, telepathy.
Well, and I also just hate it when, like, telepathy is between a romantic couple.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you need privacy in your romance.
Yeah, I was also thinking, I was like, I can think of nothing more horrifying than having to share every one of my bad, mean, petty, nasty thoughts with the person I love the most in the world.
Yeah, like, sometimes you just gotta be by yourself.
Yeah.
In your head.
Like, thoughts are not what people actually feel or believe, you know?
Yeah, I already have to worry about, like, being judged by the things I say. I don't also want to be judged about the things that I think. Because
exactly.
Thoughts are neutral.
They're just thoughts, you guys. You're not bad. You're not a bad person.
But suddenly it becomes a conversation once you're in telepathy. Anyway, flip to Matt point of view as he's FaceTiming with Galad, and is just like, keep doing your job, dude. Min has, like, a viewing of Galad, and she's like, I see him laying alone on a battlefield. And we're like, oh no, is Galad gonna die? Too bad, I guess. Wouldn't be the worst thing.
Yeah, I don't think Galad dying would really be, like, a super tragedy.
Yeah, I'd just be like, okay, another one bites the dust.
Wish he was more normal at the end, but...
Yeah. We see Matt communicating with various people through, like, codes. We find out that the situation with the cannons, a lot of them got really damaged when Demandred attacked that particular part of the battlefield, but a lot of them look bad but are still functional. Mm-hmm. So I guess just keep that on a back burner for the next 6 weeks as we talk about this.
Yeah, we should start creating, like, a reference chart, being like, do you remember the bad cannons? Do you remember the river? Do you remember... The dragon, I mean, they are Dragon Balls, technically. That
Dragon Ball Z, yeah.
That the Reiken are dropping full of messages. It's the Dragon Ball Z cipher up in here. We have Matt talk to Elaine about spying and strategy, whatnot, and finally Elaine is just like, okay, I'm going to go fight on the battlefield. And Matt's like, good luck, Brigitte. Yeah.
Brigitte's like,
who can say
she's like,
where the road goes?
God help me. Then we see a Galad point of view during the battle. He also receives a coded message from Matt. Yeah, it's just a bunch of people at this river, but I'm not going to remember the river in next section.
No, they're like...
I don't know how...
People keep being like, it's so smart that Matt sends troops to the river. And I'm like, I know the whole thing is, like, the Trollocs don't want to cross the river, so they're trying to block the, like, blah, 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 blah. But I'm like, but what else is going to happen? Am I going to remember why the river matters in 4 weeks? No. This is ridiculous, Brandon.
Not. Yeah.
Yeah, so, like, just a couple of running themes. Of course, everyone keeps being like, we're dealing with a lot of chaos. Matt is sort of, we're supposed to be at a point where Matt is on his, like, fully realized trickster god stuff where he is dealing with, like, the most chaos imaginable and supposedly arranging it in a careful pattern. Obviously this isn't entirely true because Matt himself will admit that he's losing at this point in time, which I think is fine. I think it's fine for Matt to be in a corner a little bit, but, so, like, the concept is really fun. I just think it's the execution of Matt that makes it a little bit less pleasant. Like, if this was fully embodied Robert Jordan Matt, I think it would be cool to see him moving these pieces around, and I would feel good and happy about it.
Yeah, it's conceptually a really cool thing. I agree. I have no beef with, like, Matt being in charge at this stage of the battle, and the way that he is being in charge, I think, is really interesting. Having everyone so dependent upon him and him having to, like, maneuver all of these pieces is really fun. And it's fun to see him kind of working on, like, an intellectual level. Like, Matt is arguably our most clever character, and it's fun to see that and to have other people recognize that. But yeah, it's so grating to be in the Brandon Sanderson version of Matt that it sort of kills all the vibes.
Yeah, and there's also just, like, in almost every point of view, we're getting, like, why is Matt moving us here? And then someone will never be like, wow, that was really smart. And I'm like, okay.
I'm like, okay, we get it. We can
At some point, I need you guys to be like, we're just going to do what Matt tells us because
just going to trust him. Yeah. Which, you know, it would be great if there were more characters on the battlefield who already trusted Matt. But
crazy
how that works out.
Instead, it's Elaine.
Then we get Rand and the Dark One fighting on this sort of cosmic level, which eventually descends into them being like, the Dark One is like, I'm going to show you the truth, and, like, weaves the cosmos into showing Rand a version of reality, wherein the Dark One has won, is the reality that he's showing. I guess I think that this is once again, like you sort of mentioned, returning very much to the series' roots in Eye of the World and The Great Hunt. It is also very reminiscent of, like, Edwene and Nynaeve's Novice and Accepted tests that had to deal so much with, like, alternate realities and, like, possible futures.
Sure.
We've got, like, The Great Hunt, where everyone's going through their various timelines coming into play here. And so on that level, to me, it's satisfying to just be like, oh, we're playing with this trope that the Wheel of Time hasn't really relied upon in a long time, but made up such, like, a core element of the early books that worked really well.
Yeah.
And, you know, thematically, it's appropriate given this sort of, like, the Wheel of Time, the whole alternate realities thing that we haven't played with for a while. But simultaneously, it is kind of anti-climactic, especially this first one. Yeah. I think we're going to be getting various variations on this theme for the next little while, but this first one I think is the biggest dud. Because it's just a Dark One showing Rand a future in which everything's bad, everything is the Blight, all channelers have been turned evil, and it's just like, okay, I could kind of imagine that on my own. You didn't need to walk me through it.
Yeah, and, like, again, it's we've talked in previous episodes that it's, like, a very, like, boring, middling representation of what evil is, of just, like, sort of, like, twirling your mustaches, an evil wizard in his tower lording over his minions. Like, it's not a particularly compelling take on what the Dark One's reason for existing and on a cosmic level really is. So
yeah, you're kind of like, okay, obviously I don't want this to happen, but I don't know. It also hits differently than, like, it reminds me of in Fellowship of the Ring when Frodo looks into Galadriel's mirror and sees the Shire under attack, or sort of taken over by evil forces, which in the books at least does happen. And I think in that context it's very jarring because the Shire has been set up as this, like, utopia, you know, that remains relatively untouched until our heroes return to it at the very end of the series. But we've been checking in on the Two Rivers for the entire series and seeing that it's, like, changing and going through an industrial revolution and has already sort of known the horrors of war. So it's sort of, like, lost its power as this, like, you know, bucolic ideal of country living.
Exactly, yeah.
In a way, like, what's currently happening is just as hellish as what is going on in the Dark One's ideal future. So you're kind of like, I don't know, man. Like, yeah, it's just not very interesting. It would have been cool. I don't know how they would have done this, but it would have been cool if the Dark One had surprised Rand and surprised us as readers with sort of his evil plans.
Yeah, it just, like, I don't know what, I don't know what version of evil out of the Dark One would be more compelling to me. I feel like with all of the Forsaken, we've gotten so many different facets of what you could consider, like, evil and evil motivations between, like, Grendel, who's all, like, you know, pleasure-focused, and Ishmael, who's like, I'm just so nihilistic, I want the world obliterated. Like, I don't know what out of the Dark One could have been more interesting or more compelling or what. Maybe just being like, it truly is nothing.
Yeah,
and it's
just
like,
nothing. There's no people.
Yeah, just a void.
Yeah.
I guess that's what Ishmael kind of wants. So, I don't know. I like you said, I don't know what would have been interesting, but this was just kind of very, like, I don't know, Pixar animated movie.
Yeah, just, like, a little silly in a way. The one interesting thought I had as a result of this, like, section was that I got so mad when I had this idea, and then it's not part of this series, which is that one of the Forsaken should have been a turned person.
Oh, yeah.
Because Rand references, like, now Nynaeve, who's been turned, is one of the Forsaken. And I'm like, it would have introduced such a compelling, like, sort of moral quandary to the Forsaken if one or multiple of them were, like, good channelers who had been turned by the forces of evil and now are just, like, that lets us see what sort of happens to people who are turned and what that life sort of is. And I don't know, it would have been interesting to have characters, like, deal with that on some level.
And, like, can you unturn somebody?
Yeah.
Can you return somebody?
Who's your ideal Forsaken to have been turned?
I think Asmodean has the most swag.
Asmodean always has the most swag.
So, like, that, if I were going to be, like, a character that I would got more emotional depth out of, but I feel like Asmodean is already so close to leaning towards the nicest of the Forsaken that I guess it's not as compelling. If it was Mazrim Temez Demandred, I would maybe say Demandred, because I think that could have been interesting. Demandred as he stands now.
Yeah, kind of boring.
Kind of boring. I feel like most of the men are pretty boring. Maybe Moghedien.
A lot of them are boring. Maybe it would have made him, like, maybe if Samael had been turned, it would have made him interesting.
Yeah.
You know? Maybe I would have saved him.
You're right. Who's the most boring Forsaken that we need to resurrect?
Bello. Fucking Bello.
Nerfed in one, my man.
Oh, dude.
So yeah, you are right, though, that it's getting back to some really, like, archetypical stuff that the Wheel of Time is doing that is very compelling and interesting. So as it builds up as the more of the structure of their fight, which it sounds like it is, maybe I will feel more invested in it as a structure. I was just, I think, a bit surprised that this was how this was gonna play out. But I mean, how else would it? I guess the Dark One's not actually like a physical thing that Rand can.
Yeah, Rand can't fistfight the Dark One in a Denny's parking lot, tragically enough. But again, the Dark One is so, like, ubiquitous a figure that we could have sort of given him, like, an actual personality at this stage of the text, and it would have been interesting. But sort of maintaining this lack of personality was maybe not the best move.
Yeah, it'd be fun for the Dark One to have, like, an avatar and a personality and thoughts and
like something that was surprising to us. I don't know. But unfortunately, like, a lot of that, like, classic work of, like, the shadow self is already being done on the Moradin level with Rand, so it kind of worked ourselves into a corner here.
Carl Jung was not consulted on the manuscript of this text.
But this ends with Rand being like, okay, now I'm going to show you my version of reality. He's like, here's what's going to happen. So presumably the next thing is Rand is going to show, like, the Dark One, like, here's what will happen when I kill you, or something like that. I can't remember.
Yeah.
But that's that first section of the last battle. Like you said, not a lot of surprises.
Yeah.
And where there were surprises, they were kind of disappointing ones. So, you know.
I think what I was thinking about when you're like, Rand can't fist fight the Dark One in a Denny's parking lot, which is very unfortunate. But it just made me think of Full Metal Alchemist, which does everything so wonderfully, including the very satisfying final episodes where Edward Elric does actually get to fist fight God.
Fist fight God in a Denny's parking lot, more or less.
Yeah, and you're like, this has been so satisfying on so many levels, that what happens at the end is just like a very rightfully angry 16-year-old boy beating the shit out of the cosmos.
Yeah, so Full Metal Alchemist and Wheel of Time have some similarities, I would say, including in its sort of like bossification. Mm-hmm. This is sort of classic in anime generally, but having like some lower ranking villains that you have to defeat to get to the biggest boss, which Wheel of Time is also functioning on, and Full Metal Alchemist does everything perfectly.
Yes.
To make that a satisfying conclusion. So, everyone, you could have learned from...
You could have had Matt punching Matt would be more closely aligned with Edward, I think, than Rand, but what do I know? I mean,
temper issues.
In vibes.
Yeah.
Rand in, like, I don't know, archetypes, I guess.
Yeah. But that's where we leave off for now. Anything to add? Already got it. Full Metal Alchemist. Watch that instead.
Yeah, sorry. I'm having a lot of, like, disconnected thoughts about telepathy and anxiety and Full Metal Alchemist. Watch for my upcoming book where someone with very bad OCD develops telepathy and everyone around them is having a really bad time. TM. That's my idea. You can't take it.
Thanks for listening. Thanks to Glenna McKenzie for our theme song. Thanks to our patrons on Patreon and our followers on social media.
Yeah, thank you guys so much.
Do a sign off?
Let me think for a second. We've got to have something in all of the travels that we've done.
Yikes.
I was in Minnesota visiting some friends this weekend, and we went to, it's like just a person's farm, but they also open it up. It's like an alpaca visiting farm situation. And I was really excited because I like to think of myself as a person who, like, is very aligned with animals. Like, sure. I love them. I always have. I've always just been really excited by being in the presence of any type of animal. Felt very connected to them, very soothed by them. So I was like, oh, it's going to be so fun to hang out with farm animals. And it was, like, mainly alpacas and one llama and then, like, some sheep and goats and cows. The sheep were a little big. But I did find, like, the sheep are always bigger than I expect them to be. In my head, sheep are like wee little critters.
Little lambs.
So I did fine with the, like, sheep and goats and cows, but I was so, like, viscerally upset by the alpacas, and I don't know what that is, but they were so frightening to me, you guys. Like, we walked into the pen with the llama, whose name was Taz, and the other one were the boys. So it was Taz and the boys, 2 llamas. We had, like, food where we could feed them, and they started coming towards me, and my brain was like, we are fully in fight or flight mode.
Yeah.
And everyone around me was like, all my friends were like, they're so cute, it's so fun to feed them, their teeth are so weird. And I'm like, their teeth are so weird and full of evil. So
yeah, you, I think, sensed the demons. You're the one who would live in a farm-based horror movie.
In an alpaca apocalypse.
Yeah.
The Alpacalypse.
Nope. You have to respect the Alpacalypse. Okay.
The Alpacalypse! The Alpacalypse! No! I would live. They're so upsetting.